Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now Desk. Thanks for joining us. Nick Proto alongside Sports Director Dan Booth here. And today is a very special day in the world of high school basketball for our local teams. We've got the Westside Patriots heading down to Macon for the Class 2A Boys Championship, defending their title. They're the lone Augusta team represented in Macon this year. So Dan, you've been catching up with the Patriots for this week and really all season. So you caught up with them as recently as this week. How are they doing going into this one?
They're like the cliche. They're trying to keep it like every game. I mean, you know, Coach Jerry Hunter. He's always very even keel, knows how he wants to go into these big games. He's had some success himself with Westside winning last year, and then also with Laney back in 2012, as you outlined the other day. So they're one of those teams where familiar territory. They know what they want to accomplish, and they know what it takes to get it done, especially some of the seniors who were on this year's team who were a big part of last year's roster.
Yeah, and that was this talk last year was they were so young. They had, Kaylon Hudson, who you see here, and Jalex Ewing and Amari Tillman. Those guys were the juniors last year, now the seniors. DeMarco Middleton was the sophomore, kind of running point for them, now the junior. So they were a very young team last year, a lot more seasoned this year. And one of the things that I've noticed about them is their schedule has been so brutal. So they're in that ruthless 2A region that they've got with Butler, who played in the state championship last year, with Thompson, who came down from 3A, who made the Final Four last year. They've got Laney and Josie, who are always tough out. So Glenn Hills, who's been kind of good and bad in recent years. So really just a tough region overall, and they've kind of pushed through it. And then also you add on to that their non-region schedule. You look at, they took on Grovetown, who was the defending 6A champs, lost that game by 6 points. They took on Cross Creek, the two-time defending 3A champs, and they blew them out of the water. They took on North Augusta, who was undefeated through the regular season. So they are so battle tested. Is that how they're feeling going into this?
They are, and that's something I spoke with them about earlier in the week as well. This team. And really, it's been a theme for a lot of our local teams. Grovetown played a lot of teams from the Atlanta area too, and really, they're battle tested and they're ready to go, and they feel like they can play up against anybody, and they've proven that this year with being able to run away from the teams that they should be running away from, being able to win these close games, especially in the state semifinals against Columbia, where they only won that one by 3, but their execution down the stretch was on point, and because of that, that helped get them over the hump and put them back in the state championship game with a chance to repeat. And when you think about where they've been this season, this long journey, especially for the seniors and a lot of these younger players too, because they do have a lot of young guys who are stepping up and playing new roles this year. I mean, DeMarco Middleton's one of those guys who's starting for them this year, who's really, he had a smaller role last year, stepped into some bigger shoes this year, and has just done everything that this team has asked him to do. And it's been a really fun ride for this team because they just know how to have fun. I mean, and you can see from some of this footage from practice, this was last week, and having the opportunity to see them. Anytime that they're having a water break, they're out there throwing alley-oops and having fun, trying to do their own thing, and trying to keep the atmosphere loose, but also knowing what they're trying to accomplish this year, which is bring back another state title.
Yeah, you just never know when the next highlight's coming, whether it's Jalex Ewing, whether it's Kaylon Hudson. These guys are just walking highlight reels. But that Columbia game kind of felt like the game for them. In the past 2 years, they haven't really been tested in the playoffs up until last year's championship against Butler, which they obviously came out and won. But the semifinal game they ran away with, the quarterfinal game they ran away with. So Columbia really felt like their big test. Did you get that feeling watching that one?
You know what, I did, and I think that one of the other themes for this year in general too is a lot of the other teams, because they are the only team from Augusta left standing and the only Georgia team in our viewing area that's still standing. And one theme for a lot of these teams this year is that they haven't been able to cash in these big moments when the game has been tight down the stretch. And Westside was able to do that. And once again, they find themselves in a position where trying to go back to back. I mean, we saw that with Cross Creek. We saw that with a bunch of other teams who really, Grovetown fell short in the Elite Eight this year. They were looking to repeat. And, something that's been really fun to talk with this team about specifically is how much community-driven their basketball team is. And I think, a lot of teams, with Josie, with Cross Creek, all these different teams that I've spoken with, they've always talked about how much they want to represent Augusta, and they want to continue to put Augusta basketball on the map and really let people know around the state of Georgia that people can ball here. And it's especially, it's been on display, full display in recent years, and it really is a special run for this team. And the send-off this morning was a lot of fun as well, having the opportunity to see their guys off and really set the whole tone for the day. And the opening tip is at 3 o'clock, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this one shakes out against Providence Christian Academy.
Yeah, and it really is such a pride thing. When these guys played Butler last year in the state championship, it was like somebody's bringing the title home. And somebody's coming home without it. And obviously we know how that one shook out. But really in recent years, like you said, you had Westside last year, you had Cross Creek the last 2 years, Grovetown last year, the Josie girls 2 years ago, the Cross Creek girls 2 years ago, Hancock Central, I guess they're not technically Augusta, but Augusta Christian won a couple state titles in a row. I mean, the area is just so well represented with basketball talent, so it is really cool to see, and watching these guys rise to the top. One of the hardest things to do, though, is to repeat, in part because it's hard to get people to buy in for the entire year.
Exactly.
Coming off a championship, it's hard to get 16, 17-year-old kids to say, hey, we got to go through the grind of a regular season again if we want to get back to the mountaintop. How have they been able to do that?
I think a lot of it has to do with Coach Jerry Hunter, actually. I feel like every time I've spoken with them, all the players have been so complimentary of him, talking about how he approaches the game the same way, and knowing the success that he has had, and really leaning on that and his leadership and continuing to get the best out of all his players. And, you know, once again, filling this roster this year, especially after you win a championship, you know, like sometimes things kind of fall out of place, or, you know, you don't always have that same drive as you mentioned, or the same players coming back. Being able to fit it all together like a puzzle this year and really continue to get the most out of his guys, I think that that is something that has been a big sticking point for this team this time around. And, you know, they're one of those teams that just loves to get out and run. And you can tell when they're playing at full force, because if they're moving, then there's very few teams that can stop them on when they're moving the ball. So I think overall, it's been impressive to see everything this team has accomplished this year. And the fact they still have the opportunity to accomplish even more is just, you know, icing on the cake, and it's extremely impressive.
Yeah, and it's, you know, these guys defend the ball so hard. They're long, they get in passing lanes. Like you said, they like to run. They're flashy. They like to dunk. They like to just beat you all sorts of ways. And the big one, I think, is they will run you into the ground. If you are not conditioned, they're going to beat you, because these guys are, you look at them here in these drills, they're giving 100% all the time. And like I said, they get in those passing lanes. They're disruptive defenders, and then they get out on the break, and they're just tough to stop. They are just tough to stop.
They are, and I think, you know, their defense really is the catalyst for everything that they try to do. You know, you mentioned jumping in the passing lanes. I can't tell you how many times I've been at their games and they just find ways to find that spark. They might not be doing as well as they want in the half court, but then on the other side of the floor, they'll leak out, and the next thing you know, someone's throwing the ball down, and the entire gym is just rocking like crazy. And then once the fans get into it, which we know they're going to be representing today in Macon for sure, you know, that at that point, it's game on.
Yeah, and such a big piece, too. You kind of talked about filling in the holes that get left when, you know, seniors graduate and whatnot. The nice thing is these guys really didn't lose a lot senior-wise. You know, the big three that we always talk about with this team are Hudson, Ewing, and Tillman, and then, of course, Middleton as well. It kind of feels like the old Celtics of the mid-2000s, you know, the big 3+1 when we're talking about Garnett, Allen, Pierce, and Rondo. And that's kind of what this team feels like. And having that core come back, and they're not just great players, they're great leaders as well. If you watch them play, these seniors just know how to lead this team, right?
They really do. And I think setting the tone of practice, you know, getting there early, making sure, you know, and once again, having the opportunity to throw alley-oops and do stuff like this and keeping it light is cool, but they also know that when it's time to flip the switch and be in game mode, or to capitalize on every second of practice, that's what they do. And that's a big part of it. I think a lot of, you know, everybody can see what you do on game day, but those moments in practice where you're putting in the grind, you're doing all the little things, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's, you know, conditioning, all those extra sprints, you know, that plays a big role in a team's ability to get to this point, because your cardio at that point is going to be incredible in the fourth quarter, and that mentality, it continues to exist with this team. And, you know, I think just in my short time here, one thing that I've really appreciated about Westside is their attention to detail is incredible, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The way everybody moves like one. You know, I think that's the tricky part too, especially at the high school level, being able to get guys to buy in on the defensive side of the ball, because everyone wants to go out there and drop 30 and score and dunk and do all the different type of stuff. But if you can do the little things on the defensive side, then all of that other stuff just becomes a million times easier.
Yeah, when we looked at their schedule, they had a couple of hiccups early in the year, but again, those were against teams like North Augusta, like Grovetown, the teams that are coming off of, you know, state titles or going undefeated this season. Do they feel like they're playing their best basketball right now?
So every time I ask that question, you know, the standard answer is, you know, we always feel like we can be better. But it does feel like, especially as we outlined a little while ago, that win against Columbia was huge. I think that put them in the mindset saying that and early on in the season 2, they told me, why can't we do it again? And I think with the way that they've played over the last several weeks, you're really starting to see that belief and that drive come into play where, in all honesty, there is no reason why they can't come back with another state title and just continue to further the legacy of these kids, of this program, of these schools, of Augusta basketball, all these different things. And something that a bunch of the players always tell me too, it takes 12. It takes 13 in this case. It takes everybody out there doing their thing, whether you're on the floor, whether you're on the bench, whether you're doing different things at practice to get everybody ready and pushing people, whether it's a defensive thing, offensive, whatever. It takes everybody to continue to drive the bus. And they are all bought in and they are ready to go. And I'm really excited for today. I think I'm excited to see some dunks on some fast breaks. I'm excited to see some big plays in crunch time, and it's going to be a crazy atmosphere over in Macon.
Yeah, and I wish I had prepared this a little better, but there's a dunk last year from Jalex Ewing, and it was great. It was in the state championship game, and we asked Jerry Hunter about it after the game, and he said, man, Jalex kept letting the ball up, and I told him, man, go finish above the rim. And sure enough, it's a 3-on-1 fast break. He's running the break on the as the one, and he just did pass, went up over everybody and dunked it. It was awesome. Sparked the win over Butler. That was good stuff. But that's the kind of stuff. Those highlight plays, they're fun and they're cool and they're going to be on Twitter and ESPN and everything. But they spark offenses too, and they spark a crowd and they spark your defense. And when you can make those momentum-changing plays, that shifts an entire game. And with these guys, you just never know when it's coming.
No, you don't. And I think, because it happens in the blink of an eye. I think one of the other really cool things about this team is like I said, the attention to detail is great because it makes all those other little things just continue to fall into place. And it makes moments like Jalex Ewing or Kaylon Hudson or whoever throwing the ball down in the fast break even more special because now because it happens in bunches. You start to see teams really get on that run, and if you're playing at Westside and you have a turnover and then one of the guys goes down and throws it, that next time down the floor, you're not going to have that same level of confidence because everybody's going to be rocking, everyone's going to do another thing, and then you're prone to make more mistakes, and that's when more leak outs happen and outlets running down the floor, and it's a rock slide with these guys. And I think if they can capitalize on that today and pick up that level of momentum, that's going to be scary for anybody to deal with, let alone Providence Christian Academy.
Yeah, and it's hard to say enough about the job that Jerry Hunter has done with this program. Took it over 4 years ago now, and they hadn't done a whole lot of really anything, but you saw it in each of his first 3 years, just building up. Had struggled to beat Butler. Last year got over the mountain and beat Butler, I believe, twice out of the 4 matchups last year in the region championship and the state championship. And then this year has just turned this program into a flagship program. Our friend Kyle Sandy over at Sandy Spiel has had these guys ranked at or near the top the entire season, and it's just a testament to the job he's done. And he's one of those guys that success follows him. Won a state championship at Laney, like you said before, won one here at Westside, now looking to win a third. I'm sure there are Augusta basketball historians out there that will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know many coaches that have won 3 state titles here in Augusta. I'm not sure of that exactly. If you know any, let us know. But he's done such a good job with this program.
And to that point, you always, or in general, being able to have success in general is extremely difficult. Being able to do it in multiple places is a whole nother thing because it shows that if you want to use the phrase culture, which is one of the most overused words in sports, but it transfers. Whatever it is, the system, whatever's going on, it works. And I think, I've said the word buy-in numerous times already, but that's what these kids are in. That they get it, they understand what they're trying to accomplish, they know how to approach the everyday grind of a season, and hence why they're back here again. And I think that is one of those, once again, unique situations where it's extremely difficult to repeat, but when push comes to shove, these guys are doing it.
And here's the video I was talking about earlier. This is the Jalex Ewing dunk on the break there. Excuse me, it was a 2-on. Oh, no, there was 3. Tillman's there in the corner. So you got those guys running the break, and that's just what he does. And you see the bench get hype. You saw the crowd behind him get hype. This is just the impact that these big plays have on games. But I wanted to go back to what you said about culture and Jerry Hunter creating a culture here. And yes, it's absolutely an overused word. but it's a meaningful win, and especially when you see the results of it. It's one thing to come in and say, hey, we're going to change the culture of this program. It's another thing to see it, and this is something that we have seen now for a second year in a row here at Westside. Regardless of what happens today, this season is not a bust, and this team, the culture has still been built for this team.
You know, and to the point, there are still, as with the seniors now and the juniors leading the way here, there are younger guys who are getting playing time. And when you're winning games by these big margins, you give your younger players the opportunity to get some extra PT, and that helps build confidence. And, you know, once again, continues this legacy of or culture or whatever phrase we want to use that can be really fun down the stretch for this team and moving forward. And, you know, I would be shocked, regardless of what happens today, if this team is not back in a similar position next year competing in the playoffs just because of everything this team brings to the table and everything Coach Jerry Hunter has done for this program.
Yeah, and they're, you know, like we said, they get so battle tested throughout the year.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, they came down to, or Thompson came down to 2A this year, and everybody was like, I can't wait to see Westside and Thompson. Well, if we look at we go back to the schedule here, I believe Westside got them twice, one time by 30 points. So these guys are just such a tough out for everybody. Lost, looks like 1 region game, 2 region games all season. But to your point again, going back to the young guys getting important minutes, this isn't just in, you know, season opening games against random 1A schools. These are in playoff games. I mean, they beat South Atlanta by 33. They beat Sumter County by 33. They beat Vidalia by 45. I mean, these are all playoff games that these young guys are getting minutes in.
You know, and to that point, I love using the phrase iron sharpens iron because in reality, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, you can just see from the video here that they're pushing each other in practice. And in addition to everything they do when it's game day, those moments where, you know, you're getting a little bit extra out of somebody at practice or, you know, that extra inch, whatever it is, they just find a way to get it done and they continue to get each other better. And that is why I'm just really excited to see the future of this program in general because when it comes down to it, they find ways to get the job done, and really, it's very exciting to see them play, for sure.
Yeah, you talk about competition. These young guys are going to get no better competition than the older guys that they're playing in practice every day. Because again, they're getting in those, you know, those late game minutes, maybe going up against other teams' second, third lineups. But in practice, they're going up against some of the best players this state has to offer. So really good for them and really good for the future of this program. You got to be excited if you are a Westside Patriot alum or fan or whatever. You got to be excited for today and for the future. So, Dan, we've got a 3 o'clock tip-off over in Macon. It's about 11:45 now, so we'll let you get on the road. I know you got to get out there so you can get yourself situated, but we do appreciate the insight, talking a little bit about this game, giving us a little preview, and of course we will be cheering for Westside. I know we got to, you know, stay neutral as broadcasters, but we can pull for the Augusta guys a little bit. Got our blue on here to support the Patriots. So, Dan, we appreciate the time, and we look forward to seeing you later.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun. 3 o'clock tip. You got a lot of things going on. I'm going to have coverage at 5, 5:30, and 6, and throughout the evening in general. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So there you go. Be sure to follow along, and good luck to Westside. Have a good one. Lex.